Hi, this is Ed. I got a question about fortune tellers. We'll cover tarot cards, Ouija boards, all that stuff. It's mostly about telling the future and trying to find things out about the future. And God doesn't tell us the future. That's the nature of our, well, this isn't working. This is the nature of our life, is that we remember the past, but the future is left blank. I'm trying to find some way of blocking the light here, and nothing is working. Yeah, look at that. It's like no matter what I do, the sun's just coming in. Okay, sorry about that. So God will tell us the future if He wants us to know it, and if not, we have to trust. There's a great beauty in saying to God, please do this and help me, but if you don't, I accept that because you know best. Please tell me the future if you want to tell me, but if you aren't going to tell me, then I accept that, and I will go and walk in trust with you rather than going to somebody to get that answer. So, but the second part to this is, it doesn't work. It doesn't. I mean, look up Harry Houdini, the magician, and he had a whole thing about going to people like this and trying and basically prove that they were frauds. And he never found a real one. And he did a lot of this. And they went into it knowing that he was there to disprove it, and they still did it, and they still faked it, and he still caught them every time. And it's like, people, why would you do that? Why would you go make a fool out of yourself? But I guess they figured they were smarter than him. But he was a pretty smart guy. But he died doing something kind of dumb, so I don't know. You can go look that up. What's the point here? The point is that it doesn't really work. And if you think about it, let's look at astrology and horoscopes and everything. Horoscopes say that if you're born in a certain period, one of 12 astrological signs, that you'll have a certain personality. Then that there's a horoscope for that day. But that means there's 12 kinds of people? Really, does that make any sense that there's only 12 kinds of people? Maybe there's one kind of people, I don't know. But it doesn't make any sense that everybody born in the sign of Virgo has some characteristic. And so there's a thing, what's it called? It's confirmation bias. So go do a wiki on confirmation bias. It has nothing to do with your confirmation you're about to make. And it means that when we expect something, that everything seems to support it. So this is a known phenomenon. It's really worth looking up. Education matters a lot. Not necessarily the education of school only, but going and knowing things. A lot of crazy stuff out there, a lot of crazy stuff that people say. And if they just had even the most basic facts, then they should know better. The problem is people want to believe. People want to have control over the future. They want to have knowledge over the future. And to do that, people make money. By the way, people make money on every dumb thing that you do. Divorce lawyers make money off people that can't stay married because they can't get along. People that sell alcohol make a lot of money because people can't stop. It's not that it's wrong to have it. It's just they're making money because people can't stop. And people drink for the wrong reasons. Cigarettes, vaping, dope, every other kind of thing you can think of. Sin sells. Sin makes money. But let's go back to fortune tellers. So it doesn't work. Astrology doesn't work. Go check it out. That would mean go to one and find out, because when you go, the danger is that, they're very, very good. I should bring this up. They're very good at reading faces and mannerisms and everything. They can tell a lot about a person because that's their job. They make money off of that. Some of the worst will, if a person comes in there and says, oh yeah, I've been really sick lately, they'll say, oh yeah, you've been cursed, and I've got a way to relieve that curse. And in doing that, they'll also relieve them of their money. Because if they have a little too much money, they can solve that problem too. Some people are really gullible. They really believe this stuff, and they just we call it fleeced. It's called getting fleeced. Like a sheep gets their fleece taken off. So, actually, sheepskins is a word for money, I think, some places. Whatever. So the point here is, if you really think about it, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Astrology, is everybody born in a certain month the same. So if you go to astrologers, they will tell you that, oh, of course not. It all depends on where your moon is and what the other heavenly bodies' positions are, tells us. So 2 things about that. Number one, when you see an astrology column in the paper, and I haven't looked at one of these in years, there's no reason. But when I looked at them, and my mother was into this a little bit, they still say, oh yeah, if you were born between these dates, here's your life, here's your thing, this is what's going to happen. That means 1/12 of the population, this thing's going to happen. And come on, that would be a pretty crazy thing, and scientists by now would have worked this out. Doesn't mean scientists are always right. Man, they're bonkers in a lot of ways. But, come on, 1/12 of the population doesn't have this common thing. That would be a huge phenomenon that you'd be able to see. Especially when you're working in an office like I do, where there's hundreds of people around. You'd be seeing a lot of it. Okay, so that's fine there. What was the other big deal? Oh, yeah. So the original idea behind astrology was that they saw patterns in the way the stars and the planets moved, and they, like anything that's a pattern, they figured it must mean something. So they thought, the original ones thought, that all these motions must be telling us what's going on down on the earth. Now you can either look at it that some of them thought that the movement of the heavenly bodies caused things to happen here, or the movement of heavenly bodies was somehow tied to what was happening here. Not that we were causing it, but the idea of the universe all working together in some way. And it does. But they didn't have astronomy, not astrology, astronomy in the usual sense. They were kind of mixed up. And eventually we figured out, well, wait a minute, all this stuff works according to gravity, and then Kepler and other guys figured out formulas for it. Look up Kepler, Kepler. And because of that, we learned a lot of things about how the world works, useful things that helped us to design things. This was great. But in terms of telling what's going to happen to some relationship you're in, or whether you're going to get a good grade on a test or something like that, the lines on your palm and the position of the stars and when you were born and everything else just doesn't matter, because why would it be tied to that? It doesn't make any sense. And if you look around, do your own research, and find people that are the same sign as you, you'll find that on tests, their scores aren't going to correlate. They're not going to necessarily all get a bad grade or a good grade. It's a lot more a matter of whether or not they studied, and maybe natural gifts, stuff like that, how busy their life is, how distracted they are. Let's see, what else can I tell you about astrology that would be interesting? Some people look at the world, at the universe, as deterministic. They believe that we have no control over our life at all. So this is one more thing. I hope you're still here. Probably only one person left by this time. You know who you are. So the other thing is determinism. It's the idea that the universe just works like a mechanism, like a bunch of gears, and people have no control. This is essentially atheistic. Some people will argue that, but they're wrong. I mean, the idea that there's no freedom in the universe and everything just works according to some clock, according to some gears turning, boy, it's hard to imagine God in something like that. That'd be a pretty boring place for God to make. And instead, he's created a world where right now there's like 7.5 billion people that all make choices. And unfortunately, a lot of the choices are bad, so we end up with a lot of evil in the world. But if the universe was like all just one mechanism, and you have no choice, then yeah, that means the whole faith has to be wrong. And on the other hand, if you can think about it, is it that you have no choice to think about it? And what action is required on your part? I mean, what would we do if the world's a mechanism? And if the world's a mechanism, we're not even really thinking right now. So in determinism, they actually believe that, and this would be astrology, it's very deterministic. You don't get choices. Which is kind of funny, because then they say, well, you should do this based on, whatever. But the point is, I say that a lot. If it's really deterministic, then nothing we do really matters, because we don't have any choice anyway. And you might as well save your money and not go to an astrologer. or a palm reader. The idea of the palms is that somehow something in your palm, it isn't that it tells you who you are. I could almost believe that lines on your palm could say something about your personality, because it could be genetic, right? Your genes determine the lines. Technically speaking, the genes don't necessarily determine the lines in your hand, because some of that stuff, there's a name for it, I can't remember what it is, but it's the development that goes on in the womb, and after that is somewhat random and not entirely genetic. There's a genetic basis, but past that point, things go the way they go. Two twins can be identical twins, but that doesn't mean they'll be absolutely identical in every way. Some things change and develop differently, and it's not a matter of the genes. Sorry, this is really long now, but anyway. The point is that if it was determinism, then the whole faith is wrong, and you got to figure out if you really want to believe in a deterministic universe, and if you do, it doesn't matter that you believe in it, because the deterministic universe would simply say that you had to. So it's kind of funny, it's believing that there's no choice. Making that choice makes no sense in a way, because then you didn't really make a choice, did you? Because if you say, I choose determinism, I choose to believe that everything was predetermined and I have no real choices, well, then you didn't really choose. So at the very least, don't be proud of it if you become determinist. I hope this is helpful. I hope this is interesting. Do let me know. Message me if you saw this and say, yeah, I thought that was great, or I thought that was stupid, or, man, you talked a long time. I thought you talked a long time in class, but this was really boring. You can tell me anything you want. Hey, all right. I love you guys. Have a good time. I hope your day and week is good. I'll put this up on YouTube and send a message out as soon as I can. Thanks.